The year is 1704. 23 young French women boarded a ship called the Pelican. They have been promised adventure, a new life, marriage to wealthy colonists in the New World. But when they arrive in Mobile, Alabama, they find something very different. Mud, disease, men who disappear into the woods for months, and conditions so brutal, they stage a rebellion. This is the story of the women who refused to be pawns in France's colonial experiment and how their protests changed American history. In 1699, France established the colony of Louisiana, a vast territory stretching from the Great Lakes to the Gulf of Mexico. But there was a problem. The colony was almost entirely male. French fur trappers called coureurs de bois were marrying indigenous women and drifting away from French culture. The French governor, Jean-Baptiste Le Moyne de Bienville, was terrified. He feared his men would abandon Christianity and French loyalty entirely. So he sent an urgent message to King Louis XIV. "Send us French women, or we will lose the colony." The king agreed. The task of recruiting suitable women fell to the Bishop of Quebec. He visited convents in Paris and surrounding areas. He interviewed young women ages 14 to 19 from orphanages and charitable institutions. They were poor, but they were promised a better life. Husbands, homes, a future. In October 1703, 20 girls left Paris in wagons for the port of Rochefort. Then they met the sailors. At Rochefort, the girls overheard the sailors' conversations, and the truth was devastating. The New World colony wasn't a paradise. It was a hardship settlement. Disease, poverty, hunger. And their future husband? The sailors described them as Canadian barbarians. Some of the girls tired to return to Paris, but the bishop refused. Instead, they were given gifts, allowances, and small wooden chests called cassettes to store their belongings. They would become known as the filles à la cassette, the cassette girls. On April 19, 1704, 23 young women boarded the ship Le Pelican, including 2 girls recruited from traveling families. After a stop in Haiti for supplies, the ship reached Havana, Cuba. The Spanish bishop there welcomed the girls, giving them a week of comfort and tours of the city, but that comfort came with a deadly price. While in Havana, the girls were bitten by mosquitoes carrying yellow fever. By the time the Pelican reached the Gulf Coast, half the crew had died from yellow fever. Most passengers were gravely ill. On August 1st, 1704, the survivors finally arrived at Fort Louis de la Mobile, the capital of French Louisiana, and what they found was beyond anything they'd imagined. The city was a crude outpost. The housing? Dirt floors, animal skins stretched over windows. The soldiers? Dressed in animal skins because there were no uniforms. The girls had just spent a week in the cosmopolitan city of Havana. Now they'd been dumped into a primitive settlement. Some tired to flee on boats returning to France, but were refused a passage. So they did the only thing they could. They chose their husbands' carreau. Of perhaps 50 eligible men, only 25 owned homes and land. In August 1704, 13 marriages were performed. A few women waited for the wealthiest soldiers. Then yellow fever struck the colony. 2 newly married Pelican girls died, along with 2 senior officers engaged to others. But the worst was yet to come. Once married, the girls discovered the men's true nature. Their new husbands frequently disappeared into the woods, often to spend time with their indigenous wives. Many men refused to plant gardens. Food became so scarce that some girls survived by eating acorns. That's when the women had enough. They staged a protest, denying their husbands bed and board until they built proper homes and planted gardens. The men complained to Governor Bienville. He dismissed the women as pampered city girls. But their gamble worked. The men eventually built homes and gardens. The Petticoat Rebellion, as historians called it, was a turning point. The Pelican Girls' children grew up, married, and had children of their own. Their descendants helped build the Gulf Coast. But their story has been almost entirely forgotten. And here's the most painful part. While the cassette girls were the virtuous, chosen brides, France also sent Correction Girl. Between 1712 and 1721, approximately 7,000 women were forcibly shipped to Louisiana, taken from orphanage, prisons, and the streets. Most died on the journey. Some were chained and marched across France. The Pelican Girls were the exception, not the rule. They had chosen their fate, but they were still pawns in France's colonial game. And today, if you walk through Mobile, Alabama, you'll find historical markers. But most people don't know the story of the young women who arrived, protested, and refused to be silent. They called it a petticoat rebellion. But what it really was the first feminist protest on American soil. 23 young women, forced into a journey they didn't understand, betrayed by the men who promised them everything, and when they saw injustice, they said no. Their names were Marie, Françoise, Charlotte, and you've never heard of them, but now you have. If this story moved you, drop a comment. Which forgotten hero should we uncover next? And hit subscribe, because history is full of women they never taught you about. I'm Frames of Fate 01, and this is the truth they didn't want you to know.